Hey guys, this is the Sports Hub. I'm Connor O'Gara. If you're watching this is an Elm Creek edition of the Sports Hub. There are 3 teams left in the Hub territory. Only one of those teams, an 8-man team, Elm Creek, only team alive in the quarterfinals. Therefore, the Buffs get their own Sports Hub. And Elm Creek got here basically by doing exactly what it's been doing all year. Got a 33-20 victory against Burwell. Game in which Christian Best, 209 yards, 4 touchdowns, gets into the 2,000-yard club. Just did everything Elm Creek could have wanted him to do, especially in the second half of that game. Just an unbelievable performance from Elm Creek, a team that is really thriving and believing that it can win these tough, close games. Elm Creek beats Burwell for the 3rd straight year. Burwell's got to be just, I don't know what that emotion is like to know that you lost to a team 3 straight years for those group of seniors. That's got to be awfully tough. But Elm Creek moves on to the quarterfinals. They're going to get to face the number 1 seed, Creighton. They're going to have to make that trip up to the northeast part of the state of Nebraska, and that's not going to be an easy game. We'll obviously get to that, but Elm Creek last week, what it did so well, and what I want to talk about is how did Elm Creek get to this point? Elm Creek was able to establish the ground game. Obviously, we talk about that all the time. And really overcome some of the issues that it had in the second half. Nick Crowley fumbled the ball 4 times, and that's something that he never does. Nick Crowley is as good as it gets when it comes to mobile quarterbacks in the Hub territory. But Elm Creek was able to really rally around that. You know, Crowley was able to make up for that with 2 interceptions in the 4th quarter, really close the game out. He's actually now the all-time single-season record holder for interceptions at Elm Creek. And really, this is a game where LaShawn Thornabar was able to take over too. His presence on the defensive end for Elm Creek is so important, and he's going to be so important for what they're going to need to do in order to pull off a mammoth upset this week. With Elm Creek, we talked about what happened last week. Now we're going to talk about what needs to happen this week in order for the Buffs to pull off a mammoth upset in Class D1. And in order for the Buffs to be able to get out of Creighton with a win, it's going to have to start with that defense. It's going to have to be able to shut down 2 talented ball carriers for Creighton. There are 2 kids that were just able to take over last week. You got Reed Liska, you got Colton Bolter, a couple guys that were just really dominant on the ground in a kind of a grinder win for Creighton. And Elm Creek is going to have to put together its best defensive performance of the season. Sean Thornabar, Nate Bartling, these guys are really going to have to play their best games of the season. They're going to have to get in the backfield, get some TFLs, because if Elm Creek is able to get some of that momentum going on early, be able to push back the line of scrimmage, this could be a Creighton team that doesn't necessarily know how to respond to that. They haven't had to deal with a situation like that all year. Coach was saying last week, this is the first time we've really had to play a full game. Elm Creek needs to make Creighton play a full game. If they don't do that, and if they just let Creighton run all over them early on, this one could turn into a rout. But I think Elm Creek, obviously look at Christian Best. He's going to need to be the difference, obviously, on offense for what Elm Creek's able to do in this one. Nick Crowley is such a capable ball carrier, but with Christian Best continuing what he was able to do last week, if he can continue that pace, Elm Creek's going to be so dangerous and a team that can really take over in the second half of games. It's going to be cold. It's going to be wind chills in the single digits. That ground game, so important to this one. Look out. This is a game that you're going to see a lot of ground and pound football. Not necessarily a spectator's dream, but could be a dream for one of these teams moving on to a semifinal. Well, there you have it. Definitely interested to see the way Elm Creek is able to battle against their toughest test of the season. Going to be really interesting to see the way that ground game is able to get going. If that defense can generate some momentum, that's going to be the difference. So make sure you're checking out all of our content online right now. We've had a ton of playoff coverage so far. Make sure that you check out our other Sports Hub video that's going to be on all the 2 C1 teams that are left, Kozak, Kearney Catholic, and as always, make sure you're following us on Twitter. So for Connor O'Gara, this has been Sports Hub. Thanks guys. See you in a couple days.